All right, everyone, welcome back to the channel. We have something a little different this week for you. What I want to talk about today is why did I pick a Sling TSi versus a RV-10 or some other plane. But let's do the comparison between the Sling and the RV-10, and I'll pop up some slides and have a conversation with you about some of the points that I found. Obviously, things have changed a lot in the last few months with everything that's going on with vans, and there's some cool stuff that's happening with Sling as well. So let's talk about it. I'll put up the slides and we'll go from there. See you in a second. All right, y'all, like we talked about, let's compare the Vans Aircraft RV-10 versus the Sling TSi, right? All right, so the RV-10, obviously it's a four-seater, has a pretty large cabin. It's actually one of the largest, right? 48 inches wide. And that is compared to a Cessna at 40 inches wide. If you guys have flown those, you know those extra inches really help. 825 mile range. And take a look at the cruise speed, obviously 176, fuel burn 14 gallons per hour. Capacity is about 60 gallons. Climb rate, a little over 1,400. And the takeoff and landing distance is 500 and 650. Stall speeds, obviously important with all these aircraft, 57 and 48. And max crosswind on the Vans is 20. The engine, of course, it's a Lycoming IO 540, fuel injected. It's got that constant speed prop on it as well. And for safety options, well, you have to go third party. There is an option available for a parachute, but it does mount external to the airframe as well. So that's a little different. On the Sling, again, it's a four-seater. Moderate cabin size, I'd say it's 45.3 inches wide. So it's a little smaller, obviously, than the RV-10. The luggage compartment, also a little smaller, again, because of the parachute option that's there for a lot of people. And 890 mile range, so a little bit further of a range. In comparison, a 182 is 43 inches wide, so if you guys flown that, you get 2 extra inches shoulder to shoulder kind of space, which also gives you that little extra clearance. You can tell the cruise speed is a little slower, right? Fuel burn much better. Fuel capacity 50 gallons, even though it has less capacity fuel, right? We're going further in this case. Climb rate 1100 versus the 1400. Takeoff and landing distances, they're about the same, right? So either way, you're going to be fine for whatever field you're looking for. The stall speed, also just about the same, 57.48. But the max crosswind here is 5 less, so that's something to keep in mind. It is a Rotax engine, either a 915 or a 916. Obviously, fuel injected, electric options or mechanical options on the prop itself, either the Airmaster or the MT props. Some people are putting some other props out there as well for it. There are 2 parachute options from the factory that are available to you. So you can choose to go without, or you can choose to get the harness basically built into the airframe as you get it, and then you can choose to or not choose to put the parachute on. A lot of people put the parachute cables in because once they're in, and there's really no going back. So it does still give them the flexible option later on in life to modify their airframe further and to complete the parachute option. I've talked to a couple people recently who are considering doing just that as well. So I would say if you're going with the Sling, always have the cables as part of your fuselage kit, and that way, if you do decide later on, you're like, well, maybe I want to spend the money on the parachute, you have that option as well there. Vans, some benefits and detractors. Obviously, this has changed since their bankruptcy filing and since they have now started different procedures as well, right? So Very much so. Their cost structure has changed. We used to say building a vans was much cheaper than building a sling. Now that has started to change as Vans has increased its pricing, obviously. Vans does have a performance edge, and it used to be able to customize the kits. So, for instance, if you wanted zip tip wing tips, right, you could omit the wing tips from the van side and save money and then spend that money on the third party instead. So it used to be very customizable on the kits. Vans has started to eliminate that option as well. Now, affordability, obviously, the Vans is a different type of metal in there, so corrosion is a bigger thing to worry about. However, it used to be that the quick build kit covered a lot of that, and you were able to kind of buy the quick build kit and still save over the sling. And the real thing that you just had to really worry about at that point was you always had to build the empennage. That is one of the requirements that you have to do, and you have to get to that 51%, and that's how a lot of the manufacturers or kit builders have gone around that. One thing that I really liked about the Vans, the doors are a bit bigger. Obviously, they're a bit lower. They come to basically the wing root area, right? So it's a lot easier to get in and out of an RV-10. And there are things that I really like. The zip tips was one of those things that I fell in love with. And I was like, man, guys, can we get these for the sling as well? Because these things are super cool just to have it all built in. You don't have the lights hanging off the tip of the wing, all that kind of stuff. Not quite there. I know Avio has talked to Sling in the past, and they just haven't quite gotten there to an agreement on what to do on that side. Now, a couple of people have mentioned the luggage door. Obviously, the Vans has a bigger luggage door than the Sling, and I don't know if you're going to fit golf clubs into your plane. Likely, you're going to do it through the main canopy entrances. You're definitely not doing it in a sling unless you're doing it club by club through the luggage door, right? All right, some detractors, right, on the van side. There's a lot of options, right, and there's a lot of things that Vans just doesn't include. You have to kind of know people who've done it or spend time at Sun and Fun or Adventure and really talk to all the manufacturers to see what's out there, do a lot of research. Some of the things there's no finish options really. It's kind of like a bare metal interior. You build what you build at that point. The build ease, one of the things that I did is Vans has a really cool practice kit. They actually have two practice kits, and maybe I'll show them here at the end of the video. But they have a light box that basically shows you a lot of the ways to do rivets, to do the match drilling, to cut pieces to length, that kind of stuff. And then they have a little aileron kit as well, which is just like a little subsection, and that shows you how to do some ribs and how to do again some rivets and how to do some bending for the leading edges and how to line up things. And they're super cool kits. They weren't that expensive as well, and I hope they're still selling those because they're kind of gateway drugs and they're kind of build confidence as well. And they're one of the first things I did. And honestly, I took a couple months to do them, but I had a lot of fun doing those kits. So when you look at Vans, that is one of the super cool things that they have out there, and I highly recommend that you get those practice kits to even learn more about the materials and what you're working with and that kind of stuff, right? But again, build ease. Vans is more complex to build. There's more work involved. There's more tooling. There's more cutting. There's more grinding. There's more match drilling. There's a lot of things going on that. You get almost complete materials with a lot of the stuff with Vans. It just needs tooling and tinkering and shaving, and you get into fiberglass and that kind of stuff. A lot of people spend a lot of time on the doors, for instance, with vans, and making sure those align and close properly and all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of videos out there for that. Build kit completeness, right? Again, we talked about it already. It's kind of like stock at that point, right? You're not getting any frills with that. Price effective parachute is another thing. BRS system is an external mount for the cables, so you put some basically molds covers around the aircraft to kind of hide those cables as well. It's a $40,000 option though, and that's compared to Sling, that's twice, if not more, the cost of the Sling options, right? We talked a little bit about the corrosion. It is a lower quality aluminum. It's not that it's a not quality aluminum. It's a aluminum that has a little bit more tendency to corrode. It is a very common material, but again, like you go into this, it's almost a religious battle on the corrosion and what people do for protection. But in vans, the guiding principle is you generally protect and prime against corrosion, especially in my area. It is older engine tech. Again, it's reliable engine tech. And if you've talked to Lycoming recently, these prices have jumped massively in the last couple of years. And while they were saying it's going to slow down in price increases, they don't see price increases stopping, but they see price increases happening more reasonably. And I think part of the problem that Lycoming has is they have a ton of different engines that they support, and because they still support all of them, their infrastructure is massive and their cost is high because of that as well. And the other thing we talked about, third-party options. There's a ton. You could spend months researching on vans, and it kind of detracts from the fun of just getting a kit and just starting the build. But at the same time, it's a rabbit's nest of what you can do, and it's almost endless in some regards, right? To make an aircraft that you really want to fly. All right, let's talk about Sling a little bit here. Again, the overall kit cost, it includes interior furnishings. You get some leather seat options. You get a pretty complete kit. Now, don't get me wrong, there's things that are missing. There's supplies that are missing. Obviously, there's supplies that they can't provide because they have a shelf life, that kind of stuff. And you will spend money, right? But you get a more complete kit for your dollars. The build ease, obviously we're talking pulled rivets versus solid rivets. So that is much simpler. Again, it's not a two-man job in a lot of cases, right, to get that done. With vans, you have to have a partner sometimes to do some portions. With Sling, that's a lot less. You do need partners, obviously, to help move parts around, but a lot of times, because they're pulled rivets, you don't need someone on the inside to hold the block to rivet against, right? So you're not worried about that necessarily. Again, kit completeness, really good options on the kits now as well. They recently came out with Behringer brake options, and there's additional engine options and that kind of stuff. And these things come pretty complete. I mean, you get a box and you can complete the aircraft with that stuff. There's a lot of people who also choose to upgrade some of those parts. Like they talk about fuel hoses, they go with stainless steel braided, or they upgrade the firewall material, or brake lines, that kind of stuff. But there's nothing in this kit that you can't use to build a perfectly suitable aircraft for you with. Price-effective parachutes. Again, Sling has two options. I would say almost three, right? Because 4. You can choose to go without a parachute. You can choose to have the cables so that you can get a parachute, and there's 2 parachute manufacturers, both Magnum and BRS, that you can select from. The main difference between the two parachutes, there's a repack time that's different between the two. There's a cost difference, obviously, between the two, and they have a different descent rate on them. I think, if I were to look off the top of my head, I think the Magnum descends like 2.3 foot per second. I think the BRS is like 3 something per second. So there is a slightly different drop rate on them. But again, cost, weight is slightly different on them too, and that's something to keep in mind as you build. Sling's aluminum is a little bit better, a little bit less corrosion protection, less critical. You see a lot of builders out there saying, we're not even going to protect this metal, we're going to clean it, we're going to get the oils off of it, and then we're going to build it, and then we're only going to protect the areas where we have dissimilar metals, where we can cause that corrosion just between the two metal areas, and those you definitely want to protect against. And there's some people who have gone and says, I'm just gonna corrosion protect the areas where two surfaces touch, for instance. And again, you go all over the gamut with what people are doing. It's an interesting debate. Read up on it, decide for yourself. What we're doing here is I am protecting everything inside with a level of corrosion protection, and that's my choice in life, and that's how we're gonna do it. Engine, right? One of the things I really liked about the Sling is you get in the aircraft, you start the engine. You have a single lever for throttle. You're not worrying about constant speed props. You're not worrying about mixture. You're not dealing with those things, right? And then with an Airmaster prop, you select it for mode with either takeoff, climb, cruise. Like you've got those mode options there, and it is less workload for the pilot, right? So super cool. Operating cost. Sling on their website says $60 USD, right, for fuel and maintenance on a Sling. Vans, I think, is somewhere closer to 100 on that, and it's one of those considerations that you have. Obviously, it really depends on your area, what your operating costs are, what your hangering costs are, even what your insurance costs are, right? Depend on your hours, what ratings you have, and that kind of thing. Detractors. The kit is more expensive, right, than the RV, especially when selecting the quick build options. You do lose on performance. We touched on those a little bit. The Sling is obviously a little bit slower, climbs a little slower, but distance-wise, you make up for it. You make up for it on fuel economy as well. So while the RV guys are flying past you, they have to touch down a little bit sooner. They have to fuel up a little bit sooner. They have to put a little bit more gas in. It costs them a little bit more to go a little faster, right? So again, think about your mission when you're looking at this, how fast you actually want to go somewhere. I don't know. So I know for me, what I liked. Replacing kit options, right? There's really no option to return stuff from Sling. So if you decide to replace the hoses, you can't just say, hey, don't put those hoses in my kit. They will put the hoses in your kit, and then you'll have extra hoses at the end. Congratulations, figure out what to do with those things. I guess keep them on the shelf, give them away, give them to your local EAA chapter. Maybe they can use it for one of their builds, and lets them keep going on their side. Third-party market support for Sling. There's a lot of things still growing, right? Sling is still a fairly young aircraft company. They're still making new connections. Behringer brakes was one of those things that came out recently, right? And it's continuing to evolve in that marketplace. The doors, again, they're windows, right? So they open at window height. You do have to step into the aircraft. You basically step onto the seat, and then you step fully into the aircraft from that point. So that is something, if you're not comfortable with, is a big consideration factor, right? uh, Smaller luggage door. We've seen this talked about. And I was a little bit disappointed about the zip tips not being available for Sling, but it is what it is. I've gotten used to the AVO lights that I've got instead, and they are also super cool, and they do the job. Okay. Some of the similarities, right? The build communities for both are super cool. I've made a lot of connections, and some of you guys know me as well in the build community. I can't say enough good things about both the Sling and the Vans build community. Of course, I've been watching a lot from both and really learning the trade. I mean, I learned a ton from the Vans builders guys, and of course, the local chapters here are mostly Vans builders, which I've also learned a ton from over time. So I'm super appreciative, again, of the Vans ecosystem, the people, everything there. What they do is phenomenal, right? But the Sling team as well. I reach out to anyone that I've made contact with, and everyone is super responsive. They're just like, yeah, go do this. This is the part you need. This is where I bought it from. And, everyone's just willing to help out, and that's super cool. Tooling, Sling, because it's from South Africa, obviously is purely metric in a lot of aspects, right? So it's a little more challenging to find some of the tools, for instance, in the U.S. for these things, but Sling makes up for it. They do provide some of the things for you, like the dimple dies, which is a constant piece of conversation sometimes. But a lot of the tools are the same. Like you need a DRTT, you need a dimpler, you can use a pneumatic squeezer, you're going to need some sort of bandsaw, potentially some sort of grinder. You're going to need a lot of like basic tools, and they both provide you the basic tools list. The good thing about Vans here is there's some companies like Cleveland Aircraft that are set up really well to support Vans planes. You basically say, I'm building an RV-10, and they'll ship you all the tools that you need to build an RV-10, and that's really phenomenal that's going on. So that's one of the nice things even about Vans that I like a lot. But again, like with Sling, you have to know where to go to get some tools, but they're out there right now. Workspace is about the same. You definitely need a 2-car garage at minimum emptied out. It helps if you have a 2.5 car garage, because the length of that or the width of that really helps in dimensions. If you have a small 2-car garage, like you can barely get 2 cars in, you're kind of in trouble, especially when it comes to once all the kits start arriving, right? Because the kits themselves are pretty big boxes, and then you need the work tables. The work tables itself and your tools end up taking about 1 bay of your garage, and that leaves the crates and the finished goods area to be about, like 1 car that you've got room with, which is not a lot. And so you might end up putting things in your living room, for instance, or somewhere else up high away. But these end up being pretty big pieces, right? So think about pieces that are, like 9-10 foot wide, even on the appendage kits, right? And like 4 foot deep. So you're going to have to figure out where to put some of these things and be prepared for them in both regards. Avionics wise, the Garmin is kind of like the industry standard, right? You go to anything out there, and it's pretty much everyone's pushing the Garmin standard. I love the G3X Touch. Obviously, there's other systems out there. People have done a lot with other systems, but when it comes, I think, to Sling primarily, you see primarily Garmin systems within Sling. For vans, you see a lot of other vendors in there, but again, you can put a G3X touch in both, and they both work really well for that. Okay, some notes for both Vans and for Sling, right? Vans is obviously one of the largest kit plane operations in the world. If you're in North America, their warehouse is primarily in North America, right? So even though they source parts from the rest of the world, those parts all arrive in North America at some point, and they get sorted there, put into kits, and sent out in that way. So you get faster shipping, especially if you're in the North America region, I would say, right? They're currently working through bankruptcy, and this video was recorded at the end of January in 2024. So that is something to note as well. You never know the outcome of these things, but they are fighting, and again, I don't see them going away anytime soon. I feel really confident that they are a strong operation and that they'll come through this successfully, but they have to do things that make sense. And for them, that means things like price increases, ways to limit the customization efforts that they're doing on kits so they can be more effective and have less delays getting things out the door. They had this laser cut part issue recently, which didn't help builders, and it didn't help them at all because they've had to reorder parts and replenish their inventory with a lot of defective material, right? On the Sling side, again, it's South Africa based. There are U.S. build centers for those in the U.S. There's European build centers out there as well that I'm aware of. Right, and I know there's people building them out there in Australia. I just saw one video last week of someone getting their kit and getting that crate unpacked as well. So that was super cool for them to join the community here as well. Because they're South Africa based for U.S. North America operations, obviously the guys in Torrance keep a ton of parts, but they don't keep all the parts, right? So when you're missing parts, some parts are here and they come pretty quick. And they do a fantastic job in Torrance. I can't say enough about those guys. They try, right? And it is super cool. But sometimes they have to wait for South Africa to ship them additional parts so that they can get the back stock, the back quarter parts that are missing out of the containers or anything else in from the manufacturing side of the house. So it can take some time. Things happen there. They are, as you've seen in some of the Sling videos, directly, their manufacturing capabilities keep expanding. These guys are growing their footprint. Obviously, they're in light sport. They have the Sling High Wing that they're trying to ramp up production for as well. They continue to modernize their production techniques. We saw a lot of work on the fiberglass shop, the way the windows are done, all that stuff is being modernized. So I'm super excited about the additional tooling efforts that they're working on, and the partnership announcements that they keep doing. I'm almost sad in some ways that I'm at the point where I need to finish my orders, and I know there's more cool stuff potentially coming for these guys. But at some point, you got to say, "Oh, this is the plane that I'm building. This is the model here that I'm going to have," and it is what it is. But I look at this stuff and say, man, I think I got in the right time. Obviously, one of the options I'm getting is I'm getting the Behringer brakes because that's something that I've wanted, something I've always wanted, and I'm going to spend the extra for it. But I'm super excited about this stuff. Insurance, yeah. So this is a topic that keeps going out there for everyone. Insurance is a complex thing. Vans has a much longer track record for flying aircraft, obviously. Sling does not have a full track record yet, according to some insurance brokers out there. So they cost more initially to insure. However, as more and more slings come into the air, prices are becoming more reasonable. There are more and more offerings out there, more and more parts out there for these things, more and more pilots that are getting comfortable with these aircraft. And again, you'll get better deals the more hours you have. So again, once you're building an aircraft, and if you don't have 500 hours yet, spend time flying whatever you can to build up your hours. If you don't have an instrument rating yet, do the same thing. Get an instrument rating. It'll help you on your insurance. And when you get into these aircraft, obviously, spend time with people at Midwest Sky Sports. Spend time with the people in Torrance, whoever you can to get time in a TSI before you get into yours is also critical in your costs. All right, so a lot of material here. I think personally, I selected the Sling. As you know, I'm building one. The reason why I chose it: build kits, the instruction sets. I've shared with you some of those instruction sets. They're pretty straightforward. I know people still say there's a lot missing in the instructions as you go detail, but at the same point, yeah, you send a note to someone you send a note to the factory, you send a note to Facebook groups. People chime in right away. It's pretty much like instant feedback. You say, what is this part? Where does it go? How does this thing mate to each other? People chime in right away, and they say, hey, send me a picture of this. And they'll send you a picture back of what they did, or they'll tell you what they did, or they'll send you to the store where the part is that you need to use to assemble this thing. And that is super cool. And that happens with both. But it's a little, I think, less complex with the Sling. Again, modern engine, constant speed prop, ability to use just regular auto gasoline mixed with low lead 100 obviously is something that's cool. Less manual controls. It's also nice. Less work for the pilot, right? It fit my mission. I need 4 seats. I'll probably never really use 4 seats, but I like the space of the 4 seats, and I'll tend to fly with 2 people usually, and that works really well for the mission. And the performance is actually around the Cessna 182, which is probably the biggest thing that I want to fly unless I continue to work on my license and continue to go commercial and then upwards from there. But in this case, it's got my mission range needs. It's got everything that I want to do, and it'll get me from Chicago's to Sporties. It'll get me to Oshkosh or Venture. This thing will get me all over the place in a reasonable amount of time, and that's fun. I really like the company itself. It's one of the things that attracted me to Sling is that the people are fantastic. Some of the people are a little quiet at first, which I found interesting, but you start talking to them technically, and they're like, "Oh my God, these people are impressive," and that is also really interesting. It's like sometimes it takes a minute to get someone to open up. But then when you're talking to them, it's like, man, this is the smartest person that I've ever met, and that's the type of people at Sling that I've found, and that's super cool. Again, build community as well. It's a young community. There's a lot of people that are building around the same level I am, and there's some people who are just beyond where I am, and everyone there is helping. So I think my choice, again, was my personal choice. I have absolutely nothing against Vans, aircraft, the builders, everything there. I love Vans aircraft. I spent a lot of time with Vans, especially on their 50th anniversary when the planes were all at Show Center at AirVenture at the Boeing Plaza, right? That was super cool. I loved everything that those builders were done. but I felt for me it was over my build level to be able to do something that cool. And so I felt like this was my build level and my capabilities and where a lot of my strengths were. So that's what I did. Cool. All right, let me take you back to the video, guys. I'll hop on camera again, and I'll show you one of the Vans kits as well that I built. So super cool. See you in a second. All right, y'all. As I promised, I've got the Vans light box behind me. This is the Vans Aircraft light box. It is one of the practice kits that Vans has available. It is actually super cool. You learn how to rivet. You learn how to cut some material with this thing. I practiced priming, obviously, with this thing just to see what that would take, how much material that would take, all that stuff. I highly recommend these practice kits, no matter what kit you're waiting for. There are some companies out there that are kit builders, right, that say their practice kit is their empennage kit. So that is a little bit more money, obviously, than just taking one of these Vans kits and practicing with them. And of course, you're not really necessarily committed at that point, but you get that tool experience, which is super valuable. You get that time to experiment, and you learn stuff about your build as well. So if you're waiting on a kit now, get one of these. If they're on the Vans website, that's where I got them, right? I just go on Vans website, look for practice kit, and you can select them. If they have them available, they will usually send them out pretty quick, and you'll have them, usually within a week or two, which is nice to do. And again, great practice to have out there for you guys. All right. Thank you guys so much. I know this, again, long video, long topics that needed to get discussed as well, but I hope it sheds some light. Remember to like, subscribe to my videos for more content coming. As soon as it warms up outside a little bit more, we'll get back to work. We'll get to priming, and then we'll get to assembling these parts, but that's really that's slowing us down at this point. The parts are pretty much ready for priming, and we just got to open the garage door up, lay down some tarps, and get to priming all these interior parts, and we'll get going here on assembly from that point forward. But look forward again to seeing you on the next video. Bye.